Rod Madness, where every car has a story. If you love rat rods, street rods, American classic muscle, even the unusual, including those ground-pounding, tire-smoking street machines, we got them. Fire them up, Hot Rod Madness style, with your host, Tim the Milkman, along with the Hot Rod Madness crew. Welcome to Hot Rod Madness. In this episode of HRM, we have the privilege of bringing our viewers Jake's Collection, one of the most eclectic collection of vehicles in the country. You'll see some interesting vintage vehicles and learn the history of Jake's unbridled passion for air-cooled Porsche and VW engines. We will also visit Skunk Works, a state-of-the-art facility that specializes in engine and drivetrain assembly, training, and R&D. Sit back and enjoy part one of Jake's Collection.
Jake, thanks for washing the wagon, man.
No problem, man. Just need all the help you can get with this crazy pollen we've had.
Yeah, what a way to wash the wagon with your own fire truck. That's pretty crazy stuff. What exactly is that?
It's a Mercedes Unimog.
Okay.
Unimog fire truck. It came out of, actually got it out of Holland.
Yeah.
And it was working in a firehouse when I got it. And
Okay.
after I figured out how it all worked,
Wow.
it worked perfectly. So.
Man, what a ride. You got quite a collection here, man. Thanks for having Hot Rod Madness out. Jake, this thing looks brand new, man. I know there's a story behind it, man. What a detailed engine you got in this thing, man. That's a cool car, man. What year is it?
It's a 73, and you said,
Okay.
thing, and it's a thing.
It is a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
And we all know that the thing kind of rose from the war, right? Because back in the day, they used these in combat, right?
Yeah, I mean, in World War II, the version was called a Kubelwagen. It was actually a Kubelsitzwagen, which means bucket seat car.
How you say that?
Kubelsitzwagen, bucket seat car.
Okay.
If you watch any old World War II movies, you see that a lot of times the soldiers, all you can see is their head.
Okay.
Well, they thought that
Yeah.
really thin skin on the Kubelwagen that you'll see after a while was going to help stop bullets or things blowing up.
Yeah.
So they just wanted you to be able to see the driver or passenger's head.
Okay.
So you sit down in a bucket.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Got you. Protected. They're up to here.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
So in the late '60s, the German Army, Cold War time, obviously, they wanted to have another staff car. At the time, they were using something called a DKW Munga, which came from the NSU family. Okay, people can look this up. I've had a Munga before. I can show you guys a picture of it. It's a two-stroke, 900cc, three-cylinder two-stroke. Okay, makes no sense why they did it to us, but I've had one of those, and it didn't really pan out that good. So they went to something like the Kubelwagen, and they made this car, which was also called a Kubelwagen in the German Army. Okay, because it looked like the original and it had the same role. And then from that was a civilian version was spun off of that. And that was sold here in the States in 73 and 74 only.
Okay.
And those cars were made in Mexico.
Wow.
Okay,
All right.
so this one's made in Mexico. And the other one that I have that you guys will see later is made in Germany. So, this car, I've been around them forever. I mean, I came home from the hospital in a 1973 orange VW thing just like this one. My family sold that one in 1988 after my dad blew the engine up. I did my first oil change on that car when I was like 8 years old. He had bad knees, so he couldn't get under the car to change the oil, so I was doing it. And then I just kind of got into Volkswagens, and we had a bunch of stuff. And 13 years old, I start my own company building engines, and I had 80 cars and all kinds of crazy things.
So there's a lot of sentimental things going on with this thing, and are you finished with it? I mean, what else do you have planned for it?
Well, the engine in it is a Porsche 914 engine, so it's been converted to upright.
Yeah.
So it originally came out of a 73 914 as a 2-liter. I built it into a 2.3-liter, and then I've converted it to upright with all of these cooling system components that my company, a couple hours away, Air-Cooled Technology, we make all those pieces. So.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It makes about 170 horsepower in that neighborhood.
Wow.
And when I got out of the Marine Corps in 1998, a customer of mine had this car. He had just purchased it. It got rear-ended. It was totaled, basically. I traded him out of the car, and I drove it for a couple of years, totaled, went to a few events in it, put one of these engines in it because it actually hurt the other motor when it got totaled. And then I was going to take it apart and make it crazy with huge big tires and all this stuff on it. Then business got in the way. Next thing you know, it's 19 years later, and the paint job I'd put on it was no longer any good. So back July last year, I restarted everything. I took the car back 100% completely apart, had it repainted the correct pumpkin orange, and started putting it back together again. So I'm like a week from being done with it at this point. After literally 19 years.
20 years in the making.
Yeah, well, 19 of those were sitting in a storage place. I mean, it's sat in probably 15 different storage locations in that amount of time. So
now, Jake, I can see in your nice facility here, man. You pull one of your rides in, you can do pretty much anything you want to in here to the cars, right?
yeah, I mean, it's just it's a garage, you know. But I tend to kind of be obsessive with things, so. You know, I started and it started turning out better and better and better, and it ended up like it is. Yeah. So
I'm guessing this bug right here, it don't have the original engine in it.
You're right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. So this one is a kind of a something my wife and I built over a period of about 3 years with some help from a lot of our friends that had skills that I didn't have.
Okay.
So we'll start out with the engine. Basically, that's another one of those 914 Porsche-based power plants. It has my DTM cooling system. Mm-hmm. It has a Gilmore Enterprises AC system on it that I've modified a little bit to make it fit my linkage and stuff that I've got there. This engine is actually a test engine. It has been a test engine since 2006, and it has a roller camshaft and lifters in it. I got a roller motor. Well, this is roller cam and lifters. I was using it for developmental work. It has LN Engineering Nicosil cylinders on it, which were some of the original cylinders that company made that I kind of helped start that company back in the 90s with a close friend of mine. Okay. And it's kind of the power plant that made this car what it is. It still has a Beetle transmission in it, but it's been modified gear ratio wise and things like that to hold the power this 180 horsepower engine makes. Okay. I detuned this engine to run the AC and to be nice for Beth to be able to drive a lot. Mm-hmm. We put 14,000 miles on this car in 1 year, which for a car like this, that's, people just don't do that this day and age with what they refer to as a toy car. Mm-hmm. But when we were doing this, we still drove these cars daily. And if you look, it's got a lot of carbon fiber on it. That's not fake stuff, and it's built, not bought. And there's a lot of stuff on these cars that's built, not bought. I didn't build it. A friend of mine that builds rockets for a living built it, and he made the front and rear bumpers from solid carbon fiber, the headlight rings, the running boards, the splash guards. All that stuff is handmade, one-off stuff, and then the dash insert is aluminized fiberglass, and that is said to have come from the radome of the U-2 spy plane, which I don't know how he got a hold of it, but that's what it is. It probably ended up in the junk pile or whatever. But it has Porsche Boxster wheels on it. It has a Porsche Boxster steering wheel in it. It has Porsche 911 seats that actually came out of a 912E that we'll talk about later on. Here, I'll show you my 912E. The silver is actually straight mixing silver. It's silver pigment. So it's not silver paint with a paint code. This is straight mixing silver. It's what they would normally put into paint to make it silver.
That'll give it a different look.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we built it to be a driver car, and we haven't been driving it a lot the last couple of years. It's got some dust on it and stuff. I actually just pulled the cover off of it this morning after it's been sitting for probably about a year. But now I'm going to get it out and start driving it some more. But, the AC system rocks. Volkswagen's historically had horrible AC or no AC at all. But this engine, it doesn't mind this couple horsepower gets pulled off of it. And I've gotten 15-degree air out of those ducts before on a 90-degree day. So it is very effective.
Wow. Oh, yeah, check this out. The Skunk Works barn, man. What do we have on the lift here, man?
Well, this car goes back to the beginning of my business, Air-Cooled Technology. Okay. And this car is called the Bubonic Plague.
The plague.
So I've drag raced this car. I'm not a big drag racer. I suck at drag racing. Okay. But the car did decent for what it was. But I always did things differently than other people did. It was a street legal drag car, but it was also a daily driver at the same time. So It's done 12s in the quarter pretty consistently. I did a big piece for Hot VW's magazine back in 2006, and then I did a subsequent cross-country travel in this car where we did a ton of data collection from the engine we had built for Hot VWs, and that was one of 80 engines that's been in this car.
Wow, 80.
I know of 80.
80 engines.
Yes. So, this car's lived a hard life.
Wow.
When I did the Hot VW's piece, I actually drove it from here in Georgia all the way to Sacramento, California. I took the long route, 3,450 miles across the Continental Divide 2 times.
Yeah.
I averaged 76 miles an hour in this car as a 40-year-old car, average speed, across 3,400 miles. When I got to the other side of the country, it did a 14.1 at 96 miles an hour in the quarter, and I had not touched the engine the entire time other than to get some data and things like that.
Well, I'm guessing it don't have just a regular old VW engine in it.
Well, it had one of those 914 Type 4 based engines that I told you about earlier. But it was the one that I did for the magazine article, so it was the same size as the engine I put in my thing.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's got a cage in it, Lexan glass and stuff. I started restoring the car because it was so beat up after all these years of test work, and I started restoring it back in '09, and then I never took it any further than that. But I can't sell it because it's basically my company.
Yeah, sure. Way too much sentimental test value, you would say.
Well, I still use it now for. Like, it's got a mock-up of a Type 4 engine in it, and we're developing a new header. So I've got a mock-up of a header in there called the Evil Twist that I came up with. So, I use it for things like that. And it's just when people think of the beginning of that company, Air Cool Technology, the Bluebonic Plague is at the grassroots of that.
Okay. Okay, so Jake, do you have any Porsche laying around?
No, I got Porsches.
Yeah.
It's a German two-syllable word.
Two-syllable word, okay. Porsches.
That's right, Porsche.
Man, what a vehicle. Wow, I guarantee you there's a story behind this one, right?
So this is a 1976 912E. What made this car one of 2,099 is that basically Porsche made a touring car out of a 912, which is really 911 body. Okay, this was the same car as a 911S in a lot of ways. But it's a touring car, so it's not high horsepower. It's got a big fuel tank, a lot of capacity, a lot of range. It had 14-inch tires on it, 14-inch wheels anyway, because you could put a taller tire on it, make it ride better, because we didn't really care that much about handling because it was a touring car.
Okay.
So they actually, for 1 year and 1 year only, put a 914 engine into a 912 and called it a 912E.
Wow.
The E comes from the German word for electronic fuel injection, Einspritzung. So that's what the E on here means. So earlier, from 66 to 69, Porsche made a 912. It was carbureted. It wasn't an E. So, it's basically a 912 is a four-cylinder 911. It's pretty much what it is. And
what year did you say that was?
76.
76.
Yeah. So this one is one of 500 that was built of that 2099 because it had factory air conditioning, factory tinted windows, and a factory sunroof.
Okay.
And there was only 500 built like that.
Wow, what a car.
So this particular one was my daily driver from about 2001 until 2007 every day. And then I continued driving it to 2009, and then I pulled it off the road and did a mechanical restoration on it. It has the original paint on it. It's had a couple places kind of spotted.
No, that's not the original paint.
That is the original paint, yes.
Golly.
And the person I got it from had it for many years.
Yeah.
Of course, like most everything that I own, when I bought it, it needed an engine. So I built one of my engines for it, and then I put 160,000 miles on that one. It was built out of used parts pretty much.
Okay.
And then in '09, when I went through it and did a mechanical restoration, I rebuilt that engine and updated it per se, and I put a different fuel injection system on it, so that's laptop programmable. It's an electromotive system, so you can tune it with a laptop.
Okay.
And then I had the interior kind of touched up, and then I just buffed the paint and put some new tires on it. And since 2009, I've driven it 500 miles.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that was my favorite body style right there.
Absolutely. I mean,
the
to me,
911 was iconic. It still is.
It still is. I mean, the car hasn't changed its shape since 1964.
That's right.
So, I mean, they've gotten bigger and fatter, and guys like me don't like them as much.
Yeah.
But to me, this car was the first 911 body style car that I was able to keep and hold for a long time.
Right.
The other ones I kind of bought, fixed them, and sold them. This one I bought, fixed, and kept it.
Classic Porsche. Wow, what year is this one, Jake?
This one's an '88 Carrera.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, when I was a kid, I worked at an import shop, and we had a customer that had this exact car. It's not the same VIN number, but it was the exact same triple black Carrera. And I fell in love with that car at the time. That was the car that I wanted, and it was new at that time. And so a few years later, a lot of years later, happened upon this one on Craigslist, and it said that it didn't run, and the guy had it for a long time. And so I went and looked at it and cranked it up. It had a dead cylinder, ran really bad because it had been sitting around. I bought it from him, paid him some cash, put some seafoam injector cleaner in it, drove the car as hard as I could on the way home. The 2 cylinders that were dead woke back up. I drove it for another month, changed all the fluids in it, and I've been driving it ever since.
Wow, quick fix kind of.
Quick fix. I mean, this one has 300,000 miles on it, and the engine has never been rebuilt.
No
It does
kidding.
leak a little bit of oil.
Yeah.
The gearbox needs to be rebuilt, kind of makes some noises.
Okay.
But, you know, this car, when I stopped driving the 912E every day, this one kind of took over for a long time. And I've even driven this car deer hunting.
Deer hunting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there you go. You can use Porsches for anything. Hey, man, I'm looking at the number 4 on the back of this. That means it's an all-wheel drive car, right?
That's right. So Porsche came out with a Carrera 4 in 1989.
Okay.
This is an 89. The funny thing about that year is a lot of the cars looked like the black car we just looked at because they were changing body styles.
It's real similar.
Yeah, so they went from a 3.2 engine in that black car to a 3.6-liter twin-plug 964 based engine in this car. So this is a 964 based 911.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
So they're all 911s. This is Series 964, Type 964. So it got a lot more horsepower. It got the 4-wheel drive system. You know, the jury's out. Some people hate the Carrera 4s. They have heavy steering. Some people love them. To me, it was a 964, and it was in great condition, and I got it. And the Carrera 4 system has been great in this car. It can give problems, especially the first-generation ones.
Okay, so your personal take on it, it handles okay to you?
It does. The steering's a little heavy, you know, but it's all-wheel drive. You know, I restored this car back in 2017. Finished it in 2017, and when I got it, it was another Craigslist car.
Okay.
This one ran, but it needed paint. The paint was in pretty bad condition, so a good friend of mine, Shane Palmer from Shane's Auto Body in Cleveland, Georgia, he painted this car, and Shane's done a lot of work for me, by the way. He's done this car. He's done he actually did some spot work on the white car. He's done a lot of work for me. Great guy, by the way. But, you know, it's a restored 964 Carrera 4 from 1989.
Okay. Well, for my information, me being just a regular Joe, man, I'm guessing you got a transaxle attached to the engine and another drive shaft going to the front and another transaxle up there?
You got a
how does that work?
front differential. So yeah, it has an output shaft on the nose of the transmission.
Okay.
That output shaft goes to a Cardan shaft, which is a German word for a drive shaft.
Yeah.
That goes into a forward differential.
Yeah.
There's 2 more sets of CV joints, the half shafts that run the front wheel portion of the 4-wheel drive system or all-wheel drive system.
Well, I've never seen the front half, what powers the front wheels in it, you know, before, and I was just this is all new to me, man.
Well, this is kind of akin to that Volkswagen Golf Country.
Okay.
It kind of goes back to that. It's the same kind of setup,
And
except for it's, you know, that's front engine
Yeah.
with the rear wheels pulling and the front wheels too. This is rear engine with the front wheels pulling. So
I'm just wondering how heavy duty the axles and the drive shaft and all that is. Will it burn all 4 tires?
it won't really burn them because it doesn't really have enough horsepower to do that. Now the turbo versions are a different story when you tune them because they made this car in the turbos, and then of course later on all 911 turbos became 4-wheel drive pretty much after this car. But you know, it's definitely a good handling car. These things are excellent in the snow. That's why they came up with it, was for all weather driving.
Right.
And you know, people build rally cars out of these. I mean, they're a very capable overbuilt chassis system.
Well, I'm always thinking totally different from guys like you. I'm thinking big block supercharger, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, swirly burnouts, catch fire, you know, that kind of thing. You know, I'm you know, thinking.
That means you're normal.
Well, I want to see you build something like that. That's what I'm saying. Put the idea in this guy's head, man. Look at this stuff.
It's there, but I just don't. You know, it's not me.
I know.
It's too normal.
The oddball stuff. Yeah.
That's right. That's all I care about.
That is cool. That is cool stuff. Jake, man, this car is so smooth looking. They pinched it right behind the doors. It looks a lot more aerodynamic, a lot smoother. What year is this one?
This is a 95
Okay.
911. This is the 993 or Type 993 series. So this was the last series of the air-cooled lineage of the 911. So pretty much what I've showed you here picked up in the mid-70s and went to the end with the air-cooled cars. I don't have anything earlier than a mid-70s. I sold the only one that I had, and I should have kept it because they're worth so much money now.
Wow.
But this is another Craigslist car.
Okay.
My wife actually drives this one a lot.
Yeah.
And, 275 horsepower, air-cooled, flat six. This one, I've tuned it, flashed it, did exhaust, did a lot of my tricks to it. When I got it, it came off Craigslist because it leaked oil. These engines are notorious oil leakers. They'll leak from 25 places. So I bought it because to reseal one of these things costs a lot of money for somebody that can't do it themselves.
Yeah, but you being who you are,
exactly,
you can grab one up and fix it, right?
In a week, I had it where it wasn't leaking a drop anymore.
Man.
And I've been driving it for probably the last 5 years and put probably 20,000 miles on it. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, something like this, it's not complex by today's terms, but as these cars got newer and newer, they were putting more and more and more stuff in what was really just an older model car. Now, Porsche actually went to a completely different body design and chassis and everything else when they came out with a 993. Before that, like the 964 had a lot of characteristics of the earlier cars. So things kept getting more and more complex. You had more AC condensers, you had more electronics, more this, more that, until finally they went to the water-cooled engines. And they water-cooled the cars starting in 99. So basically the last year for an air-cooled car was 98.
Yeah.
This is a 95, but they're still the same series, 993.
So this car, the engine bay size is the same as this, except they just cram this one full.
Yeah, and the engine has got tons more stuff on it, It's just, but the thing is, this has really good AC. That car has horrible AC.
Right.
This
Big
has
difference.
really good heat. That car has really not any heat. So, this car has power steering. That one has power steering with your two arms. But that car is lightweight, so you don't notice it as much.
Yeah.
So, I like all these for what they are. On a hot 95-degree day, I'll drive this car.
You want this one, yeah.
On a day like today when it's 70, I'll be in this car.
Yep, sunroof. Okay.
Exactly.
Pull the roof open and go for a ride.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all Porsches, and of course, in my business world, I'm known for developing the water-cooled Porsche engines now more than I was the air-cooled ones. And people are like, why don't you own a water-cooled car? Well, I've owned one of all of them, but for what I do, I cut my teeth on these air-cooled cars, and this is just what I like.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Hot Rod Madness. We invite you to check back soon as Tim the Milkman checks out more from Jake's collection. From all the crew, thanks for watching Hot Rod Madness.